Hello and welcome to the new series of Drishti IAS. I am Pooja Dwivedi and today, of course, we are going to talk about a very important topic from your examinations point of view. That is the significance of Donbas region. This topic is very important from the perspective of prelims, specifically geographical, and also mains, GS mains paper 2, because this is a topic for international relation. And if you're a political science student, of course, this is going to be very important for you from your papers, from your mains paper, optional paper point of view. So let's begin and look at the different subtopics that we are going to discuss over here. So I'm not going to just harp on the background on and on. I will talk about the current scenario, and of course, I'm going to be as brief as possible. I will make it crisp as possible I can, and you have to make sure that you build on the structure I'm giving you here. So what is the news? Now, Vladimir Putin, the president of Russia, he has signed a decree which recognizes two independent republics in Luhansk and Donetsk, that is Ukraine's Donbas. So Luhansk's People's Republic and Donetsk's People's Republic are now, according to Russia, a separate entity. They do not belong to Ukraine anymore. What does this mean? What does this mean for Russia, for the world? It means that Russia now can supply troops and it can also supply arms to these regions, the region by the name of Donbas, under the pretext of saying that Ukrainian government is being aggressive in Donbas. So in order to protect Donbas, this decree has been signed. And Duma, that is the lower house of Russia, it has supported this decision. The defense secretary, the defense minister, everybody was in favor of this. What does this mean for India? What does this mean for the world in general? What does this mean? Does this mean war? Let's see. So before we begin with anything, just remember one thing, that this is an agreement which has been signed between Vladimir Putin, the president of Russia, and the rebel groups of the Donbas region. We will talk about Donbas first, because until and unless you know what is Donbas, what will you understand? So this is for the people who have no idea about Donbas. Donbas is basically the southeastern region of Ukraine. It, according to Russia, is now a separate entity. Okay, so culturally, historically, linguistically, it is very similar to Ukraine, but it is a mixed population area, you can say. This area, Donbas, Donetsk, and Luhansk, now, according to the decree, Donetsk's People's Republic and Luhansk People's Republic, this is a different entity, and this has been given a thumbs up by Russia, of course, the only thumbs up to be given. So Donbas region is a region which, after the 2014 annexation of Crimea, when Crimea was annexed by Russia, there was a lot of unrest in these regions, okay, Donetsk and Luhansk. So what happens that these two regions, they were pro-separatists. They did not want to get linked with Ukraine. And because of that, they were considered a separate entity by Russia, and this was basically the separatist region. Separatist, okay, remember this. So these were pro-Russians. Russia always kept an upper hand in Ukraine with the help of Crimea and Donbas, okay. So now these two regions are supported by Russia to be a separate entity. Russia can amass troops over here, coming closer to Ukraine. It can give weapons to this region. And that is a grim situation for the world. Many countries such as China, India, many other countries, they are trying to calm the situation by saying that please practice restraint. And if from geographical perspective it is asked, which sea lies near Donbas, Sea of Azov? Sea of Azov is lying in between Ukraine, the Donbas, Crimea, and of course, tell me in the segment, comment segment, what is this region called? Okay, what region is this? I hope you are able to see. What region joins Sea of Azov and Black Sea? Tell me in the comment segment. Okay, so this is because of course, the Ukrainian crisis. Why is Vladimir Putin doing so? Because of the crisis that is happening in Ukraine. The simplest thing I can put here is Russia does not want NATO or NATO to expand beyond its, according to Russia's own process of thinking, that it should not go beyond certain countries which are near to Russia, and Ukraine is one of those. It also wants NATO to have an agreement between the states which were considered a part of NATO after the year 1997. So this is something that Russia has been saying, but it, as US and Ukraine were not listening to it, it is doing so. So the situation is very grim. Let's see what happens now. And if we talk about the arm buildup, this is a map I have attached for you to understand what is the arms buildup. Very important for you to understand why it is for us as Indians, it is a grim situation, because we are dependent on energy. We are dependent on many things right now from the Central European region. And we have many investments with respect to Russia. Many investments India wants to have with respect to Russia. And that is why it is important for us to understand. Okay. So we have talked about that in 2014, large swathes of Donbas became gripped with unrest because they wanted to have an understanding with the Russian populace. They did not want to be associated with Ukraine. So this was one thing. Secondly, there was also the signing up of Minsk's deal in the year 2015. This is not 18. 2015, to have restraint, to have proper peaceful process of an agreement when it comes to territorial attitudes, but that did not happen. It was basically a ceasefire agreement, but that did not happen. So Russia's State Duma has already asked and urged Putin to recognize the independence of the two regions. Now Moscow had issued 800,000 Russian passports to Donbas residents, which was by an order of April 2019. So if they were not getting passports, they were not getting proper identification to travel from Ukraine, Russia started to do so. This was the first step towards Russification of that region, that yes, we consider you as a part. Also, Russia directly finances pensions and public sector salaries in eastern Ukraine's two separatist regions that were Luhansk and Donetsk, because after the war, the Ukrainian government stopped giving them any sort of financial support. So that was another thing. Both the separatist region, they have abandoned the Ukrainian currency of hryvnia, and that was in favor of Russian ruble. So that was the third step. This is how Russia and the two separatist regions came together. In 2021, the Donetsk People's Republic marked Russia Day on June 12. In showing their sentiments, these two regions were very open that yes, we consider ourselves Russians. And then in late 2021, Putin ordered the Russian government to lift curbs on any sort of import and exports of goods between Russia and parts of the Donetsk and Luhansk region, basically in order to show support that yes, we are supporting you financially, we are ready for investment. Okay. Also, United Russia, which is a pro-Russian party in Ukraine, it campaigned in eastern Ukraine on territory controlled by Moscow-backed separatists before a parliamentary election in September 2021. Also, local authorities in Donetsk, they said in January 2021 that Russia had begun supplying its Sputnik vaccine, which was not at all in consonance with the Ukrainian government, because Ukraine did not want to import vaccines from Russia because of the Western alliances they had. Okay, moving on, if we talk about the significance, first we need to understand the significance of Donetsk and Luhansk region is a lot, because they are rich in coal. Also, it might surprise you that although the coal field which extends through the east to Russian territory, it is the fourth largest in Europe. But the problem is that it needs a lot of investment to get it cost-benefit analysis. Basically, the investment should be in such a manner, because this region is not very beneficial when we talk about the cost-benefit analysis. A lot of investment might go, but a lot of, a lot of return may not be possible because of the low economic capacity of the region. So first is that. Then from the perspective of defense, we need to understand that the steel which comes from these two regions are very important for Russia. So numerous companies in eastern Ukraine, they provide important raw material and products to Russia, especially for Russian space and defense industry. And we all know that how does Russian defense industry work? the name they have got for themselves by supplying their ammunition and arms to the world, specifically to regions such as India as well, countries such as India as well, we know that how important of a defense sector for Russia is. Then also we talk about sovereignty and security. As I told you, that Russia does not want NATO to move towards its borders, which is happening. Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, through all these countries, Russia wants restraint from NATO's point of view. So that is something that we need to understand, because Russia does not want the presence of US near its region. That is why it is insecure. And that is why by recognizing these two territories, it is coming closer and closer to Ukraine. Maybe it is, I don't know, but let's not hope it's a war. Moving on, because we cannot afford a war right now, right? So on the Indian economy, energy, the prices of oil, crude oil, are already shooting up. Can you tell me in the comment segment at what year high they are at? So first that. Secondly, the specificity right now, we can say, with respect to energy is very dangerous. Very dangerous. Why? Because we are getting back on the track. Omicron did wreak havoc, but it did not wreak as much havoc as Delta did. So we are trying as an economy to get back on track. If it's something of even a small scale war occurs, which is in the process, I hope not, but it still is. So what will happen? Investments will fly away from those regions, because people will try to protect their investments and not invest more in regions which are very crucial for energy supply. And that, if that happens, that is already happening. If that happens at a much larger scale, it will wreak havoc for India, and there will be distortion in energy prices. We already know that India is walking a tightrope when we talk about balancing its ties with Russia and Ukraine and US. So it is a very tough job for India. India has been a leader of the non-alignment movement. But is it really possible in this century, when India is gaining significance on the global map with respect to having a very vociferous approach towards democracies? Let's talk about that as well, because this is a missed opportunity for India. Missed opportunity. Why? Why am I saying this? As you can see, Russia-Ukraine crisis, US scrambles to mount response after Putin's announcement, dials China. Now here, the problem is, it did talk to India, but it is seeing China is getting closer to Russia. China might have, that much of clout politically, maybe through its deal which happened in the Winter Olympics, that it can talk to Russia. And why not India? Why not India? Why India was not seen from the similar perspective? So it was a missed opportunity for India right now. India never wants to talk about internal matters. This is something that India has done since a long period of time. Why do we say that we do not welcome outside comments in our internal matters? Every country is different. Every country has their constitution. Every country has their own history. So India is very firm on its standpoint when it says we do not want to talk about somebody else's internal matters. India is saying that we want restraint. And that has been welcomed by Russia. India has said that we do not need to have rhetorics. We should practice quiet diplomacy. So first thing is that. And if we talk about the sanctions which US has imposed, worrisome, not a lot, but a bit. Why? Because one thing that we need to keep in mind right now, as we are discussing it, US has not imposed sanctions on Russia. US has imposed sanctions on the two newly created or recognized regions by Russia, that is Luhansk and Donetsk. So what does this say? First of all, let's read out what does this say, the sanction. Executive order on blocking property of certain persons and prohibiting certain transactions with respect to continued Russian efforts to undermine the sovereignty and territorial integrity of Ukraine. So any financial support, any investment support, or any trade cannot take place from persons of US origin, from persons of US, no origin, from people from US in the Donbas region. This has been said. So US wants that Russia does not capitalize on the gains which it can by recognizing these two regions as republics. So keep that in mind, not on Russia, but of course on the regions which have been created. But it's a problem for India, because India, if this grows into a full-fledged war, India has signed 4 defense agreements with Russia. Russia is a time-tested friend of India. Russia has supported India, Russia has stood by India, and it still stands by India with respect to the narratives India has for its own country. So first, that we cannot lose our friends such as Russia. Also, in the Far East region of Russia, India it is determined to invest in the Russia's Far East region, which is rich in natural gas and oil. So we all should hope that we cannot afford a war right now. China cannot. China is also very firm on its stand when it say we cannot afford a war right now, because this is a post-pandemic. I hope this is a post-pandemic world where every country needs to have their own outlook towards dedicating their approach in getting back together, not tearing each other down. So quiet diplomacy. The Russian envoy to the UN has said at the emergency meeting of the UNSC that we are ready for diplomatic talks. But when it comes to sovereignty, we will take every measure as possible. So this is very important for us to understand that every country has their own sovereign issues which could be solved with the help of diplomacy, because they are saying that in retaliation to the sanctions that the US has put, they will come with their own sanctions. The world is not ready for sanctions, not at all. We have experienced the trade war. We have experienced the COVID-19 pandemic. For the economy, the investment is going down. We have seen the sentiments of the investors in the stock market, how the stock market is going, touching new lows. So that is not something that we are looking forward to. Let's have a look at our question. Okay. So why is Donbas region of Ukraine important for Russia? Discuss the implications of sanctions imposed by the US on Russia with respect to the recent decisions of Russia on Donbas. Okay. 250 words. That's it for today. Now tomorrow we shall meet again with another segment. Until then, stay updated and thank you so much for watching.